My name is Hannah Taylor, and I'm a sophomore at Texas Tech from Wichita Falls, Texas. For my nursing theory presentation, I chose to talk about the theory of culture care diversity and universality by Madeline Leilinger. I'm really excited to elaborate on the history and purpose of this theory, as well as the present day application of this theory throughout this slideshow. This is one that's just really close to my heart in terms of just travel and culture. It's something that's really important to me, so let's get started. So firstly, I wanted to touch on the educational and career backgrounds of the theorist. Madeline was born in 1924 in Sutton, Nebraska. She lived out a long-willed life full of experiences as well as impacts, 88 years worth, passing away in 2012. The start of her upper-level education consisted of a diploma in nursing from St. Anthony's School of Nursing. She then went on to receive a BS in biologic science from Benedictine College, her MSN from Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and then finally a PhD in anthropology from the University of Washington in 1965. Post-completion of all of these really impressive accomplishments, she served as the Dean of the School of Nursing for a time at the University of Utah, and then later for a time at the University of Washington. So my second slide about the theorist, there's just so much to say about Madeline. Career-wise, she served as a nurse as well as an anthropologist. I feel that this gives her so much credibility in writing this particular theory just because she had those experiences around different cultures, probably, in the hospital environment being a nurse as well as just in their regular environment as an anthropologist. She chose not even to just be around them, but chose to dive into studying them in order to learn how to effectively communicate with people of a different culture as well as serve them. This is a theory that has led to the stimulation of transcultural nursing concepts that have never been before explored in the nursing field, which is so exciting. This theory also made great strides in the educational field. It created an open door for students to receive a master's degree in transcultural nursing. I feel that this alone stands to demonstrate the success of the theory. Not only has there been advancement in the nursing field, but also in the general community. So the theory, it began to emerge in 1978. Then it began to make its impact on the world. In the words of the creator, Madeline, I took this from the textbook, the goal of transcultural nursing involves more than just simply being aware of different cultures, but rather it involves planning nursing care around knowledge that is culturally defined. I think that that's the perfect summary of the transcultural nursing theory, touching on all the bases of the importance of always putting the patient first. This is a theory that integrates creativity into communication, allowing nurses to survey their options, post asking the patient questions that revolve around their cultural background. Additionally, it creates congruence between patient care and patient culture by nurses. This is, in turn, has helped to develop a more comfortable environment for patients overall. This is a theory that I believe, when applied correctly, stands to make a genuine difference in the healthcare field. So this is the sunrise model. It's a fantastic visual of the theory. It works to compile the theory together into one space to accurately elaborate on all of the contributing factors of the cultural diversity process in nursing. As you can see from the arcing circle, there are multiple pieces that all fit together to form into the blanket term that is culture. This allows for a breakdown of the intricate parts of one's background to ultimately allow for culturally congruent healthcare. There's a trickle-down effect from the factors listed in this model, just for them to ultimately affect one another. It also acts as a guideline for nurses putting this theory into practice in the healthcare environment. It's, in a way, a template of questions to ask and what to ask patients about, such as their educational background, economic standing, political affiliation, beliefs, morals, values, as well as just so many other things. Ultimately, this model goes to show that there are so many different factors to take into consideration when caring for a patient other than just their health status or just symptoms that they might be facing. So some benefits of the theory. When working to break down the benefits of this particular theory, I found so many. There were five that I figured I could put on this slideshow to narrow it down to ones that best covered all the parts of the theory. Firstly, it helps to create a culture-sensitive healthcare environment, and with this, there's a more effective and smooth communication through the healthcare provider as well as the patient. Relevance is another big factor that the theory touches on. Today's society is one of diversity and inclusion, and this theory works directly to accommodate to both of those things. This theory also works to hold the nursing community responsible for their education in other cultures, which allows for their practice of cultural awareness as well as efficiency in their job. This then promotes the healthcare environment as well as its employees in a really positive light, making things easier all around. Lastly, when there's a deeper assessment of the patient required, there could be an easier road paved to diagnosis of this patient. Once again, an all-around benefit to the healthcare field as a whole. So some limitations of the theory. Though this theory isn't with many faults, there are a few. When going deeply into assessment of the patient's culture background, the nurse could easily become overwhelmed and have a lack of ability to do their job to the best of their ability. However, this could be resolved through proper education of nursing students in the field of culture, care, diversity, and universality prior to beginning their career. Additionally, there's a lack of clarity in terms of examples of what the patient may be facing medically and how specifically to apply this theory in certain healthcare situations. Lastly, with the previously mentioned diversity and inclusivity today in the world, there could be difficulty even assessing one's culture stance what they truly require when they could be non-traditional to that culture and have made it their own. So just accommodating to them could be a little more difficult when assuming what they require based on their culture if they practice something different. Now moving on to how this theory is able to be applied to the nursing care of patients, I feel that this would cause the nursing process to look different in terms of its initial assessment. There would be several more questions that involve more heavily around the patient's personal culture background. Congruently, the treatment plan would also heavily revolve around the culture background of the patient and could be more easily developed based upon the patient's answers given during the initial assessment. Lastly, this would cause nurses to possibly be more aware of the culture environment around them in the hospital and be able to help with situations that require cultural consideration that other nurses might not yet know about. Lastly, when analyzing how this particular theory related to my personal view of nursing, I found several similarities. Nursing practice should always be something that takes the accommodation of the patient into mind above all else. A safe and comfortable environment for a patient lowers the chances of communication apprehension for either the caregiver or the patient, and that's just really important for getting your message across in the hospital and getting good answers back from the patient themselves for a good diagnosis. This is a theory that directly lines up with all of these values. In my opinion, people will generally never regret having more knowledge of the world around them. With this knowledge comes the building of credibility for themselves as well as relationships with people that they would have before not have cultivated. Additionally, there is more awareness across the board to nurses as well as the community around them. And lastly, it allows for nursing to be in the most personal form possible, as it is supposed to be. Not just simply getting information from patients for a needed diagnosis to do your job, but to form a relationship that will affect two lives for the better. So this is my reference slide. I got things from the textbook as well as a really interesting article that I found online about the theorist. So thank you for listening, and that is my slideshow.